this has had to feel somewhat of a gut punch for the former president of the United States. For the first time, we see a poll that Fox News supports that is reputable, and this is a first, I think, the second major one since Governor Sununu endorsed Governor Haley. That Governor Haley is within 4 points of Donald Trump in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's right. So 33 to 29%. This is an American Research Group poll, which is based in New Hampshire. And this could be seen as a bit of an outlier poll. There was a CBS News poll that still showed Nikki Haley surging, but Trump 15 points ahead. So possibly a bit of an outlier, but certainly one that's making headlines. Most polls show Donald Trump in national polls up by 30 points. So is Haley inching closer to Donald Trump since Governor Sununu's endorsement? That's the big question this morning.
I was talking about this last week, and if you're talking with voters every day and looking at the polls as well, that I think that the race has become some sort of a two-way race. Donald Trump is still the leading candidate. When you look at the RCP average in even New Hampshire, he's up by 21 points. Plus, this poll was conducted right in the middle of what Colorado just did right there. So you didn't get voters' reaction to that. There's another poll that's going to be coming out that's after to get, how that may impact New Hampshire. So, I think it tells you that Haley does have some folks that are supporting her, leaving Ron DeSantis, and maybe some of them are going to Haley. But when you look at the national polling as well as New Hampshire, he's still up 21 points, Brian.
All right, so here's Governor Sununu, who made the move to endorse Governor Haley, not Governor Christie. We all know he's against President Trump. Watch.
She is surging. It's real. There's a lot of momentum here. And I've always said this is a race between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. People see this as a movement, a real movement to kind of make sure the Republican Party's moving forward, making sure that we're galvanizing the country with someone that not just can win, because most of the Republican candidates can beat Joe Biden. That's actually not very difficult, but can actually carry the entire ballot with her.
So that is one poll. That's 600 people, likely Republican primary voters, in the American Research Group. At the St. Anselm, or the St. A, as they call in the area, it is Trump with 44 and Haley with 30. So we still got a 14-point lead there. But everything's going to change after Iowa, don't you think? Yeah. 5 days later, we're going to be at a primary right after the caucus, and then any momentum there. For example, if DeSantis does really well, he'll close the gap in New Hampshire. But if he does not do well, you wonder if he's out by New Hampshire.
And if he doesn't do well in Iowa and Nikki Haley does better than him, a lot of people are going to say, listen, it's over for you, which would be really surprising, given a year ago everybody was thinking that Trump and him could be neck and neck. And then a lot of people are putting pressure on Chris Christie because of this poll. He's at 13%, and he's put all his eggs in the New Hampshire basket. So if he drops out and that support goes to Nikki Haley, could there be a viable Haley chance at winning this whole thing?
Chris Christie has made it very clear that he's going to stay in the race because he wants the other candidates to be more critical of Donald Trump. The problem is that's not where the Republican base is right now. It's pretty much clear that the former president has the bulk of the support. And, Brian, I've made this point consistently. There are some people that are within the party that want the traditional Republican Party. That's where Nikki Haley comes into play. I don't know if a lot of Ron DeSantis supporters are going to go to Nikki Haley, but I do see some Chris Christie folks going over to Nikki Haley.
Well, see, the thing is, too, the most interesting question for all the experts to tackle is, if you want to beat Trump, how do you beat him? Because everyone says, if you want to beat him, you criticize him. That doesn't work because his base takes it personal. You're insulting the people you want to win over. And Nikki Haley thinks it is, he was right then, I'm right now. And they were trying to bait her yesterday. One said, I want to vote for you, but you're not tough enough on Trump. He said, I think I'm a better choice. They want to be tougher. Well, what's the point? She says, I'm friends with him, number one. And number two, he did do a good job. Number three, though, he brings chaos. I'm more calm. I could bring next generation. I am younger. But if you insult Trump, everybody you're trying to win over will not run to you.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, well, you've seen it in the polling. Ron DeSantis did not criticize him initially from a personality standpoint. There were some jabs here and there, but it wasn't overall. When he started to attack him, he started to drop even more, Carly.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And Donald Trump recently addressed this, saying a lot of people are talking about the other candidates surging or getting ahead in the polls. He's like, nationally, I'm up 60%. So these little marginal differences he says he's not worried about it. So you understand where he's coming there. On the other side, though, a super PAC attached to Trump is now releasing attack ads against Nikki Haley in New Hampshire, which she says is a good sign that, she's going in the right direction.
Trump wants a complete victory before his trial starts. So he wants a knockout early so he can focus on Biden.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.